Some type of melee class, but I much prefer to like be in the back, like shooting stuff far away from the action. And so I didn't enjoy it as much as I could have. I still had a lot of fun, but it's especially hard to get into like a character mindset if you do it that way, because your primary thing is the stats, and so all of your brain just kind of focuses on the stats, especially towards the beginning. But a lot of people prefer to do it that way, especially people that have played D&D a lot. If they're just like trying to make a character really quick, they'll be like, oh, I've played everything, so I'll just, you know, do whatever I come up with.
And down the line can help with building an NPC.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the idea of owning up to bad stats sometimes, and I feel like I love the idea of someone who wants to throw in as much creativity as you can. You just feel like the person who wants to make the most persuasive argument, but it's like, I rolled shit on charisma. I have like a -4, so it's like, I'm trying really hard. -7. Oops.
Yeah.
Well, I would just to kind of piggyback off of that. Maybe not so much for beginner players. I think as you get more experience with it, you could definitely challenge yourself to make that shit work. So it's not to say that if I did a straight roll and I wanted to be a wizard and my intelligence was a 7, I wouldn't try to just make it work, because like AJ said, if your charisma was a 4, it's like, I'm really trying to be persuasive, I promise. But maybe for more of the seasoned, you know, kind of players, and it's something that maybe you could kind of challenge yourself, but I definitely wouldn't recommend that for new people. You want to, you know, give them kind of a fighting chance to get in there and be heroic, get away. You got to hook them, you know, and get them into it, and then, you know, let them clusterfuck it up later.
The way you hook players is you don't fully explain how stats are done. The very first character I created was rolled. It was 46 D1. I didn't hear the D1 part, so I had a real good stats. A bunch of 16s, 18s, like a 20 because I was a half-elf bard. I'm like, I'm awesome at this. I'm good at everything.
Yeah.
I don't know why everybody complains.
Yeah.
I have character.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, not having the off one.
Yeah, then I created my second character, and I realized, oh, this is what it's supposed to be. I can be bad at things.
Oh, man.
When we did our character creation for our show, we had a huge emphasis on flaws. What were your guys' opinions about that, or just flaws in general for those who aren't players?
I think flaws are a super important thing to give to your guys, whether it's something from the background itself or just something you pick for your character, you know, just because you want to do it. I, like Andrew had mentioned before, you know, kleptomaniac rogue is a stereotype, but I rolled up a Kenku rogue who is 100% that, but his flaws, he is a bird, he's got a bird brain, so he doesn't actually know the value of the items he steals. He just cares if it's shiny.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
That's great.
That's his whole option. So
it'd be like
one of the
a +4 sword that's really dull and a shiny thing, you know, like they'll go for the shiny thing and not the sword. Yeah.
Oh my god, that would be amazing.
The first thing he stole was basically a flashlight ring that when you activated it, it shined bright light in a 10-foot radius. So he just spent the next 10 minutes peck on, peck off, peck on.
That's so cute.
So what's your guy doing back there? He's still pecking the ring. Just keep going.
That is great.
Fish the Sneak.
I like that a lot.
I love him so much.
Oh, that's a fun name too. The one thing too, when it comes to flaws, I like flaws. You know, we talked about this in character creation, having a low stat in something. Again, just kind of adds an extra RP dynamic to it, because it's one of those things where maybe you as a person or a character try to shy away from doing, like, no, strength is not my thing. But then when it comes down to it and you have to do it, it's like, this could end terribly. And maybe it helps you think of different ways to do it. But I actually wrote a note down here of flaws and quirks. Like, does anyone do both sides of this coin or not, where you have your character so fully fleshed out that you have all your quirks, and you just stick with it the whole game, or Do you have it where
it evolves over time?
Evolves, right? Like it's like, oh, that's actually something kind of fun I want to do now. I'm the second part. I might have a little bit of something, like maybe one or two things that my guy might do, but I like to evolve, like additional stuff as the character grows of different like little quirks that I do, or things that I might say, or ways that I react to certain things. But that's just me. I don't know what anyone else felt about creating their characters. With that.
I'd say I'm probably a mix of both. Like going into it, I have, just to like help myself get in the mindset, I usually have like one major flaw that my character has, like a personality flaw. And then as it goes on, I find little things where like maybe I reacted too quickly to a situation, and it's just kind of like, oh, well, I guess she does that now. Or, you know, just kind of adapting with it as it goes along. Because I do think that's a really fun way to do it, because at the beginning, you know, you're not going to have your full character fleshed out. So it is fun to kind of discover the quirks that they have along the way. But
yeah, there is a lot of truth to that, where most of the time when you play a character, you don't know exactly how you're going to play it spot on until you've done maybe about 2 sessions. Then you start to know, like, okay, this is how we're going to do it.
And I think a lot of it too with fleshing out that character, because you figure your background, you figure your flaws, a little bit of your backstory, but then you just got to jump into the game and figure it out together. But a lot of that is about the group dynamic, which will kind of segue to the second topic. Is
great segue. Well done.
It's like
that happened. So there's the dynamic that the type of game that the DM wants to run. So I think some mistakes with newer groups, because a lot of times when someone gets in a DM is like there's a group of players and someone's got to run it. So who's gonna pick up the DM shield, you know? So I think one of the most important things to establish for the group dynamics from square one before character creation even begins is touch base with your players. Tell them what kind of game you want to run, and as a player, tell your DM what kind of game is going to be fun for you, because you don't want to get 5-6 sessions into it and the play styles are completely different and you're not having fun. I mean, it's a game. You're supposed to be having a good time, and the DM needs to be willing to run a game that you will like, but you also have to know the expectations of what type of game he wants to run, and it might not be a good fit. So what do you guys think about just group dynamics in general?
I think a lot of people either have this or want to have this, but a great way to get those group dynamics settled is a session 0. I think it's very underappreciated, but it helps take care of basically everything we're going to cover in today's show. You have character creation, so you can help people craft their backstory and character to your campaign, and you also get to set expectations for everybody. Is this high low magic campaign, gothic themes? Are you playing it brutally realistic? Are you keeping track of encumbrance, blah blah blah, boring technical jargon? It's a great way to lay the foundation of here's me as the DM and what I expect from everybody, and it's also a chance for the players to sort of introduce, hey, I'm playing this, I'm playing that, and you sort of can get a feel for the characters. Also, just real quick, want to shout out Dolphin Jesus, aka Ryan, who was a player in the campaign, and he met Fish as an NPC when I ran him, so he has quite the experience.
Nifty Spin loves your layout.
What up, Dolphin Jesus?
I do think that that's actually one of the first things when it comes to party dynamics or character dynamics. It's the first step is to actually character dynamic with your DM, because I think this is one of the things what Wizards of the Coast or the D&D people, whoever we're talking about, when they introduced the Sword Coast, one of the things that was very useful about that, it gave like a baseline for everyone to build off of, and it was an almost kind of uniform, agreed kind of setting, which made everything become like, I don't have to tell you all the different intrigues, I don't have to go through all the nitty-gritty details of your character. You can kind of semi get a feel and a pick for where you want to go. But for a lot of homebrew, and when it comes to the new fresh stuff or anything that no one has ever really kind of experienced too much, it's great to talk to your DM about it and say, this is my character, this is where I kind of want his background to be, this is kind of how I want to see him interact with the world and his party members. Can you give me some kind of insight as to what he would know, what he would like to do, and what he might be involved with, so that he has some kind of great connection with the world to share with the actual players? Because I think that's the best fun thing, is when a character has to have something all by himself and making up things on the spot, it can be a little challenging. But when a DM can provide you with all the kind of little nitty-gritties that you would know, you have something to share with the other players, some kind of little insight that might be yours alone. And it helps kind of get that spark to start.
I think that you mentioned a really good point earlier about how there needs to be a conversation before the campaign starts with the DM and the players. The DM needs to be okay, what kind of campaign are you guys wanting? And it needs to be a collective decision. It can't be majority where one player is I don't really want to play that, and then they still join the campaign. There is no shame in saying, that's not my play style, I'll find a different group. There is no shame in that at all, because if you do that, everyone's going to have a much better time with their game. It could be a hard thing to do if you are really good friends with the people who are playing this game, and you can always try it. But if it's not your thing, don't just stick around and hate the game to play with people you like. And if that ends up happening, there needs to be ongoing conversations about, okay, well, how can we make this better? How can we make it more fun for you? So I definitely think that coming up with a good group dynamic, there needs to be a lot of conversations, and a lot of people don't want to have those conversations because they're just oh, it's supposed to be a game, it's supposed to be fun, it's supposed to be easy, not supposed to overthink it. But D&D is a little bit complicated in the sense that if everybody is not having a good time, one player can just ruin it for everybody. And that sucks when it happens.
Right.
So, but the best, one of the best pieces of advice I got as a DM was whenever I was trying to figure out, okay, how does the DM thing work? Was that you need to listen to your players and you need to understand what they want from you. And if that's not something you can give, you need to be honest about it, because you're not going to enjoy running a game that you hate. But yeah, anyway, group dynamics is very important.
I think the biggest tip I can give to any DM out there is at the end of your sessions, because most groups do some kind of decompression where they kind of talk about what had happened, kind of summarize it all. But we go further than that. We go into what went well and how can we make sure that happens again, what didn't go well, what didn't you guys like, and what are ways to improve it. And we really try to hit all of those finer points, so that way if you keep doing it at the end of your game sessions, even if you're brand new, if you actually implement those changes and find ways to reinforce what went well, you're going to find that your players are going to start having a much better time and a lot more fun, and you're going to see your skills as a DM really start to grow. My personal experience running these guys through this campaign, when we're doing that, they've really helped sharpen skills for me and different things about hey, you need to describe things more. That's one of my setbacks, one of my flaws for being a DM, is I don't describe the smells and the feels and the way things look, or enough. And so I can be aware of that, but if they have an opportunity given to them to be able to voice that, it helps me to improve that.
Well, yeah, and that definitely comes along with the group dynamic just from the get-go of, we're supposed to all be friends playing a game together.
Yeah.
You should be able to be open and honest with each other and not feel like you need to hold back in terms of, Shaun, you're sharpening each other's swords really by doing that. And, not sword fighting, just sharpening anyway. No, but that's definitely something that I've actually incorporated a little bit different than a decompression afterwards. We still kind of talk afterwards, just a little bit. People gotta go sleep, that kind of thing. But I really try to make it a point to every now and again do like one-on-ones with everyone, just a real quick 30 minutes. You like where your character's going? You like the story so far? Anything's I'm doing good? Anything you want more of? Anything you want me to improve on? You know, just individually, just so I kind of feel like I'm showing each of my players their own individual moments of a conversation that, you know, they can tell me about, you know, where they want their character to go, and we kind of formulate together, and it's kind of fun, you know, how it fits all together, making people all the pieces of the puzzle come together. Interestingly enough, by the way, since we did character creation for the first part, I took group dynamic a whole nother fucking direction in terms of like character creation of like how characters kind of stuff. Like we run a game with 4 clerics. Like I thought we were going more like the you know, you do this and you do this, or I want to do this, or like Steve was saying about session 0 was definitely a good time to talk about that. But I'm super happy we went this other direction in terms of like the people. Which one are we doing? We can do both, right?
Yeah, whatever. Anything with group dynamic at all, we can talk about.
Couple things.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I mean, I love everything you're saying and agree, but when I'm gonna say, if I heard Finley saying this, I'd be a little scared. He's like saying, we're going to go and brush up on your sword play, you know, some one-on-one time.
Right. In our downtime.
I do like how apparently Bacon is calling you out on your BS. Only him when he asks for help.
Yeah, in our downtime, we can sharpen each other's swords a bit and, you know, play a little bit around and compare size. Anyway, so yeah, when I saw group dynamic, I took it the player creation side when it comes to the conversation topics of. It's almost like, you know, no one ever wants to take up the mantle of DM, but when somebody says, it's almost like second on the list is no one ever wants to take up the mantle of cleric or something. Like no one ever wants to just be the healer guy. Like everyone. So, I mean, one of the things that's a big part of it, comes to mind is any kind of superhero group that's out there, like the Avengers and the X-Men and stuff like that. People collectively as a group, they're badasses. Individually, they're badasses. They each have their own individual things that they do that makes them special and unique to the group, but as a whole. So I don't know if I'm mini segueing over to that from like the player side to the character side.
Yeah, I was going to it. Yeah.
That's literally all the notes I have was on that.
That's fine. No, yeah, that's fine.
Well, before we go too far, I did want to say one thing about just from the player side. I think it's also important to know that the conversations everybody was talking about are ongoing. That's a good piece of advice of if you lay the groundwork for what you want your campaign to be or what you're expecting as a DM or from your DM, but if it strays too far or you just want to see something else, never be afraid to tell your DM, like, hey, we haven't seen this type of thing, you know. Hey, your past few sessions have been combat heavy, you know, can we do some more RP? But yeah, just never be afraid to approach your DM or your characters for what they want or what you want to provide them. Now we can go whatever Kyle was rambling about.
You have permission, Kyle.
Why do you need clerics so much, Kyle?
Well, no, and you know, again, everything. I wrote down a couple things that Steve said already about really important things. Like session 0 is super important. Setting expectations is super important. Laying the foundation is super important. That's all, you know, all really good player stuff. Because if you don't do that stuff, and then, you know, stick sessions down the road, something does come up player-wise, and then it's like, well, we never really talked about that, and then XYZ happens, and then bullshit, and people get upset. So, no, that's all super important. That's all really good stuff. I wrote all that down. No, all my notes were on the character side of life, where it's like, you know, how do people feel about, like, do people, like, when you come to make a group, or you come to play a game, does everyone sit down in their session 0 and say, okay, so what does everyone want to be? And then we can kind of formulate a plan of like what everyone can do. Or is it really forge that puzzle together? Or is everyone like, well, we have 2 rogues because, you know, we all individually made our characters and these 2 guys want to be rogues. So we'll just go with it. So it was just an interesting concept of conversation of, if people do come to the table with 2 rogues, like, nah, we don't really want that. Let's try to get a little more variety. Or is it more, let's all just be paladins. Fuck it, and we'll roll deep with 5 paladins in the campaign. I don't know, just
yeah,
from that side. So,
you make me think of Matt Mercer's The 5 Bards, and all you have are caltrops.
Like I say, cycling back to character creation and what Kyle's saying, an interesting way I found to help a new character or a new player build their character is they played some MOBA, so I just put it in terms they understood. Do you want to play tank, DPS, support, or healer?
Mm-hmm.
And that terminology is used a lot. I think it's a great framework to sort of throw your party together. Like, okay, who wants to be the tank? We have, these roles covered, and those are good bases. So you at least have mechanically some good group dynamics if you have at least one tank, one DPS, one support, one heal. I get very nervous when I join a party that has no cleric or healer.
Mm-hmm. Put a pin in that. I'm gonna touch base on that. Put a pin in that. I want to comment on that later, but continue. You're good.
She fell down.
No, it didn't. Don't pay attention to that.
I have that exact same lamp.
Oh my god.
Just gonna fix
Yeah,
that.
you're fine. Go ahead. Go ahead. Kyle, you're right.
Well, all right. So since he's fixing it, the one I actually made a note of here was that's kind of a common statement, really, that you see sometimes, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. Of when it comes to group dynamics, when it comes to putting together, me personally, think that if a party doesn't have a cleric, I think it just kind of adds a little bit of a different perspective of how we're going to play this game. Like, do people feel like we're playing D&D? Someone has to DM, someone has to be, and then we figure out the rest from there? Or is there groups where it's like, let's just roll with that one and see what happens? So I actually made a note of that, so I'm glad you said that, Steven. It is. What's the word that I'm looking for? Not a snafu. That's not even a word. What's the
Snafu's a word.
Stigma? Like a stigma kind of thing? Like
stereotype?
Stereotype, yeah.
Cookie cutter mold? What were we talking about?
We have to have a cleric, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, breaking away from cookie cutter builds, I like that.
Yeah.
Break the mold.
It is possible for, you to have a group of all rogues. It's possible for you not to have a healer or something, but going into that, it's something that the DM has to be aware of, because the DM needs to take into account, okay, there's no one to heal them really. I need to make sure to give them plenty of gold so that they can buy healing potions, because they're going to be needing to keep really heavily stocked on those, because if not, they're all going to die. So it's important to keep that in mind if you're a DM, what your players are and how balanced their party is.
My personal opinion on it is the DM creates the world, he runs the monsters, he runs the NPCs. It's not his job to run the characters or the dynamic that the group wants to run. So when I was getting you guys all set up and everything, it was there are the recommendations, but you guys are all experienced players. What kind of group do you guys want to have? Do you want to have a well-rounded one where somebody can do the things, or do you want to be niche? And just leave it up to you guys, because you don't get to do as much as far as creation in the whole world perspective. So I don't personally, I don't like it when DMs try to step in there and make those decisions too. Give those to the players and let them figure it out. Just because something is meta, that doesn't mean is what has to be run. If that's not what's going to be fun for them, let them make a weird composition if that's what they want to do.
Oh yeah, you can make any party work. It's just like Kayla said, if you got no healer, maybe the DM tosses you a couple extra healing potions, or drafts up, instead of a wand of match missiles, maybe it's a wand of healing word, or something like that to bridge that gap without solving the problem for you.
That's nice.
Like with your guys' party, you don't have a rogue, which is rare. I mean, almost every party has a rogue. People love playing rogues. That's what you guys wanted to have, is no rogue. which is great. It's opened up a lot of really fun moments where a normal traditional party with a rogue would just be like, oh, I'm gonna lockpick this or go steal this off of this person. You guys haven't had someone who's that role, so you're having to figure out other ways to do it. So it can really add layers to an experience.
Yeah, except for the fact that since there is no rogue, I literally made sure that somewhere down the line, gonna solve those door problems, because I think we've had enough of the door being our number one enemy, getting stuck in that little prison.
Oh no.
God, that door.
Doors will always be the number one and
Yes.
true villain.
Right. Well, and again, just again for more of the character side, and this actually rolls again into some things that we did pre-stream and character creations and talking about stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Not to bring up an oldie but a goodie, but I've got to anyway because I want to. One of the things that I really like, and it's on the videos now, but I love the Ninja Turtles. Fucking love them. They're my favorite, right? And we talked about this at length numerous times.
And Ryan is still like, what does it mean?
I don't get it. I get it, Kyle. I know the stuff, you got the leader, the smart one, the funny one, the badass, but they all have their own individual quirks and kinks and what makes them special individually, and then as a group, they still kick ass together doing things too. So I don't know. I just really like it when that everyone kind of has those little kind of individual things for the group dynamic.
Right.
And again, it doesn't have to be a cleric as the healer. I mean, there's lots of other ways to heal people. Druids and pallies, there's bards can heal people. Shit, you can still. I think when you step outside your comfort zone, maybe a little bit for the medium to experienced seasoned players, maybe not so much for the beginner stuff. But I really think it's fun when you push yourself in those higher ranges of experience playing this game, trying to find other ways to do things that typically there's a class specifically to do it, and you don't have that at your disposal. Like lockpicking a rogue, cleric here, healing people. We don't have a barbarian beat shield. There's other things we could do, but still kick ass and take names and have fun at the same time.
Awesome. Well, we're at the 1 hour mark, so we're going to take our first 5-minute break. We will be jumping into the chat. Let's try to get a bunch of heists and stuff going while we're on break, and we will be back in 5 minutes. Thanks for sticking around, guys.